Welcome back to ABC General Hospital Spoilers channel. Today, we will learn about the explosive developments hitting Port Charles on Tuesday, December 16th, where family secrets, criminal conspiracies, and dangerous power plays collide in ways that will leave fans absolutely stunned. Tracy's fury unleashed. The Quartermaine mansion becomes ground zero for family drama as Tracy Quartermaine makes her grand return from an extended spa retreat in the French countryside. Refreshed and rejuvenated from her time away, Tracy enters the mansion with shopping bags filled with French delicacies and expensive souvenirs, completely unaware of the bombshell that's about to detonate right in front of her. She'll enthusiastically share stories about the luxurious treatments she received, the exceptional wine tastings she attended, and the peaceful morning she spent overlooking the Mediterranean coastline. However, her cheerful mood will evaporate the moment she casually asks what transpired during her absence. Ned Quartermaine will shift uncomfortably in his chair, exchanging nervous glances with other family members present before carefully broaching the subject of a recent health emergency. Tracy's maternal instincts will immediately kick into high gear as she demands full transparency about what Ned is dancing around. When the truth finally emerges that Ned suffered a serious heart attack requiring immediate medical intervention and hospitalization, Tracy will transform from a relaxed traveler into an absolutely livid family matriarch. Her voice will rise several octaves as she confronts everyone in the room about why nobody thought to contact her during such a critical family crisis. The elegant French scarf draped around her neck will seem almost comical against the backdrop of her mounting rage. Ned will attempt to defuse the situation by explaining that the family made a conscious decision not to interrupt her well-deserved vacation. He'll reassure her that by the time anyone could have reached her, the immediate danger had already passed and he was stable under medical supervision. Furthermore, Ned will point out that Tracy flying back early wouldn't have changed his medical outcome or accelerated his recovery process. Now that he's making steady progress and following all doctor's orders, Ned genuinely believes there's no reason for Tracy to feel upset about being kept in the dark. But Tracy sees the situation through an entirely different lens. Her fury stems not just from missing the emergency itself, but from the fundamental disrespect she perceives in being excluded from such a monumentally important family decision. She'll unleash a tirade about how the Quartermaines have always functioned as a unit, standing together during times of crisis, and how this decision to shut her out represents a betrayal of those core family values. Tracy will make it abundantly clear that she expects to be informed immediately of any future family emergencies, regardless of where she might be traveling or what she might be doing. Emma sees through Britt's performance. Meanwhile, at General Hospital, a fascinating confrontation unfolds between two women who share a complicated history. Britt Westburn finds herself face-to-face with Emma Scorpio Drake in one of the hospital corridors, and she immediately launches into what can only be described as an elaborate performance. Britt's attempting to project an image of someone who has completely turned over a new leaf, speaking in measured tones about personal growth, redemption, and her supposed transformation into a better person. Emma, however, isn't buying a single word of this carefully rehearsed act. Having witnessed Britt's manipulative behavior patterns over the years and understanding the depths to which Britt has previously sunk, Emma possesses a unique ability to see through superficial facades. With the directness that comes from being raised by legendary law enforcement figures, Emma will bluntly inform Britt that she's the absolute last person on the planet who will fall for this transparent charade. Emma's cutting observation will catch Britt completely off guard, forcing the scheming doctor to recalibrate her approach. The confrontation will expose the ongoing tension between Britt's desire for social acceptance and her deeply ingrained patterns of deceit and manipulation. Emma's refusal to enable Britt's behavior represents a refreshing dose of honesty in a town where people too often give second chances to individuals who haven't truly earned them. Dante's crushing guilt. Over at the Port Charles Police Department, Detective Dante Falconeri finds himself drowning in guilt and self-recrimination as he confides in fellow detective Nathan West. The usually confident and capable officer appears visibly shaken as he discusses his son Rocco's legal predicament and the criminal charges that threaten to derail the young man's entire future before it truly begins. Dante will reveal to Nathan that he holds himself entirely responsible for how this situation has spiraled out of control. If this doesn't go our way, it's because of me, Dante admits with a voice heavy with remorse and regret. He'll explain that his approach to parenting, combined with certain decisions he made regarding Rocco's upbringing and his exposure to the dangerous world surrounding the Corinthos organization, created the perfect storm that led to his son's current legal jeopardy. The weight of potential consequences hangs heavily on Dante's shoulders as he contemplates what Rocco's conviction could mean. He's haunted by visions of his son's promising future evaporating, replaced by a criminal record that will follow him for decades. Nathan will attempt to offer perspective and reassurance, but Dante remains trapped in a cycle of what-ifs and self-blame that threatens to consume him entirely. Sonny's desperate confrontation. In a bold and potentially reckless move, Sonny Corinthos tracks down Assistant District Attorney Justine Turner for an intense confrontation that walks a dangerous line between persuasion and intimidation. Sonny corners the Ada in a location where they can speak privately, though the power dynamics of their interaction remain unmistakably clear. With his characteristic intensity, Sonny demands that Turner approach the judge presiding over Rocco's case and formally requests that all charges be dropped immediately. Sonny's argument centers on the mysterious disappearance of Professor Henry Hank Dalton, the key witness whose testimony formed the backbone of the prosecution's case against Rocco. Without Dalton available to testify, Sonny contends that the case lacks sufficient evidence to proceed, making it a waste of the court's time and resources to continue pursuing charges against a young man who deserves a second chance. However, Ada Turner isn't naive about the dark undercurrents swirling beneath Port Charles's surface. She'll likely seize this opportunity to directly confront Sonny about her strong suspicions that he orchestrated Dalton's permanent disappearance. Turner may point out the convenient timing of Dalton vanishing just as he was preparing to provide damaging testimony, suggesting that Sonny's criminal empire once again eliminated a problem through violent means. What Turner doesn't realize is that the truth is even more complex and sinister than she imagines. While Sonny would traditionally be the prime suspect in such a disappearance, the actual culprit is the international criminal mastermind Jen Sidwell. This dangerous figure murdered Dalton as part of an elaborate scheme to gain leverage over multiple Port Charles power players simultaneously. Sidwell then planted Dalton's corpse in Mayor Laura Collins's car trunk, creating a nightmare scenario that forced Sonny to step in and help Laura dispose of the evidence, thereby entrapping both of them in Sidwell's web of blackmail and manipulation. Sidwell's expanding control. Speaking of Jen Sidwell, this calculated criminal will arrange a private meeting with Mayor Laura Collins to deliver his latest set of demands. The international crime lord has been systematically tightening his grip on Port Charles's infrastructure and economy, and his newest order represents another significant step in his master plan for complete domination. You will take credit for making it all happen, Sidwell tells Laura in a tone that makes it crystal clear this is not a request, but rather a non-negotiable command. Having already forced Sonny to surrender control of his valuable waterfront piers through a combination of blackmail and threats, Sidwell now requires Laura to provide the political cover that will make this illegal power transfer appear legitimate in the public eye. Sidwell's scheme demonstrates his sophisticated understanding of how power truly operates in modern society. He doesn't just want to control the piers through brute force, he wants the transfer to appear as though it resulted from proper governmental oversight and concern for the community's best interests. By compelling Mayor Collins to publicly endorse this decision and present it as being in Port Charles's best interest, Sidwell gains a veneer of legitimacy that will make it much more difficult for authorities to challenge his growing influence later. Laura will be required to craft a statement praising Sonny for supposedly agreeing to step back from waterfront operations, while simultaneously announcing new oversight measures that will In reality, simply funnel control directly to Sidwell's organization. She'll need to appear before cameras and speak convincingly about how this represents progress for Port Charles, all while knowing that she's actually helping a dangerous criminal consolidate power. The moral compromise required for this performance will eat away at Laura's conscience, but Sidwell has left her with absolutely no alternative options given the blackmail material he possesses. Carly and Valentin's uneasy alliance. At Carly's residence, an uncomfortable domestic situation continues to evolve as Valentin Casadini remains hidden away as her unexpected house guest. When Carly mentions needing to step out for an errand, Valentin casually insists that he'll be perfectly fine staying alone in her home for a few hours. This suggestion immediately triggers alarm bells for Carly, who has zero intention of leaving a former international arms dealer unsupervised in her personal space. Carly will firmly inform Valentin that under no circumstances is she leaving him alone in her house where he could potentially snoop through her belongings, plant surveillance devices, or compromise her security systems. Her blunt refusal will spark yet another round of bickering between these two strong-willed individuals who find themselves reluctantly working together against a common enemy. Despite their constant friction and mutual distrust, Carly and Valentin remain united by their shared determination to take down Jack Brennan. They'll continue refining their strategy, sharing intelligence, and coordinating their moves against Brennan while simultaneously trying not to strangle each other in the process. Their alliance represents a fascinating study in how necessity can force together people who would normally prefer to remain on opposite sides of any conflict. The scheme they're developing promises to expose Brennan's corruption and strip away the respectable facade he's cultivated. However, executing their plan will require perfect timing, ironclad evidence, and a level of coordination that seems almost impossible given their contentious relationship. As they huddle together reviewing documents and planning their next moves, the tension between them crackles with both animosity and a grudging respect for each other's capabilities. General Hospital spoilers indicate that Jack Brennan will soon face devastating betrayals that threaten to destroy everything he's built. The combined efforts of Carly and Valentin, along with other players moving pieces on this complex chessboard, will converge in ways that leave Brennan vulnerable and exposed. Tuesday's episode promises to set in motion events that will reverberate throughout Port Charles for weeks to come, with consequences that will fundamentally reshape the power dynamics in this perpetually turbulent town. Next, we will learn about the issues surrounding Dr. Portia Robinson's increasingly complicated pregnancy scandal that threatens to explode and destroy everything she has carefully built in Port Charles. This devastating situation has all the hallmarks of a classic soap opera catastrophe, with lies piling upon lies, medical ethics being trampled, and innocent lives hanging in the balance as Portia desperately tries to keep her darkest secrets buried beneath layers of deception. Portia's web of deception grows more tangled. Dr. Portia Robinson has built her entire professional reputation on integrity, medical excellence, and unwavering commitment to ethical standards. However, beneath that polished exterior of the respected co-chief of staff at General Hospital lies a woman drowning in secrets that could obliterate her marriage, career, and standing in the Port Charles community. The distinguished physician finds herself trapped in a nightmare entirely of her own making, one that grows more complex and dangerous with each passing day. Portia has already sat down with her husband Curtis Ashford and confessed that she is expecting a baby, presenting this news as a joyous development in their marriage. Curtis received this information with happiness and excitement, completely unaware that his wife is harboring a devastating secret that could shatter their relationship forever. What Curtis doesn't know and what Portia is desperately determined to keep hidden is that renowned physician Isaiah Gannon could very well be the biological father of the child currently growing inside her womb. The timeline of Portia's pregnancy coincides suspiciously with a passionate affair she conducted with Dr. Isaiah Gannon, her colleague and subordinate at General Hospital. This illicit relationship developed during a particularly turbulent period in Portia's marriage to Curtis, when emotional distance and unresolved conflicts created vulnerabilities that Isaiah expertly exploited. The affair itself was reckless and completely out of character for someone in Portia's position of authority, representing not just a personal betrayal, but also a serious violation of professional boundaries and hospital policies. Curtis's arrest creates unexpected complications. The situation became even more precarious when Curtis Ashford found himself arrested by Port Charles police in connection with the shooting of Drew Kane. This shocking development sent ripples throughout the entire community, with Curtis maintaining his complete innocence, while law enforcement officials insisted they had sufficient evidence to justify his detention. For Curtis, the arrest represented a devastating blow to his reputation and freedom, but for Portia, it created an entirely different set of complications. The night that Drew Kane was shot holds particular significance in this tangled web because Portia was not with her husband during those critical hours. Instead, she was secretly meeting with Isaiah Gannon, engaging in yet another clandestine rendezvous that she hoped would never come to light. When investigators began piecing together timelines and asking questions about people's whereabouts, Portia realized with growing horror that she might need to provide Curtis with an alibi, but doing so would require revealing where she actually was and who she was with. Acting with remarkable speed and calculated precision, Portia immediately approached Isaiah to discuss their predicament. She explained in hushed, urgent tones that they might need to come forward and admit they were together that evening, which would provide Curtis with the alibi he desperately needs to prove his innocence. However, this plan would simultaneously expose their affair to scrutiny from law enforcement, hospital administrators, and the entire Port Charles gossip mill. Isaiah's reaction to this proposal was far from enthusiastic. The accomplished doctor made it abundantly clear that he has zero interest in having their relationship become public knowledge. He expressed serious concerns about how revelation of their affair would damage both of their professional reputations, potentially derail his promising career trajectory, and subject them both to intense judgment from colleagues and the community at large. The discussion revealed fundamental tensions in their relationship, with Isaiah appearing far more concerned about protecting his own interests than supporting Portia through this crisis. Medical emergency raises the stakes. Just when Portia thought the situation couldn't become more complicated, her body delivered a terrifying warning that everything might be spiraling completely out of her control. While navigating her usual demanding schedule at General Hospital, Portia suddenly experienced a sharp, stabbing pain radiating through her abdomen with such intensity that it nearly brought her to her knees right there in the hospital corridor. The excruciating sensation left her gasping for breath and clutching her midsection, immediately triggering alarm bells about the viability of her pregnancy. This frightening medical episode forced Portia to confront the very real possibility that she might lose this baby before any paternity questions can even be addressed. The prospect of miscarriage introduced an entirely new dimension to her already overwhelming stress, as she grappled with the emotional trauma of potentially losing a child while simultaneously worrying about how such an outcome might affect her elaborate deception. Would losing the baby eliminate her problems by removing the physical evidence of her affair, or would it create new complications that she hasn't even considered? Medical professionals understand that stress, anxiety, and emotional turmoil can have devastating impacts on pregnancy outcomes, particularly during the vulnerable first trimester. Portia's constant worry about being exposed, her guilt over deceiving Curtis, and her fear about what Isaiah might do if he discovers the truth are all creating a toxic stew of stress hormones coursing through her system. This biochemical chaos could very well be compromising the developing fetus and increasing her risk of complications. The paternity question looms large. As Portia recovers from her frightening abdominal pain episode, she faces a critical decision about whether this medical scare should prompt her to reconsider her entire approach to the paternity situation. The experience of potentially losing this baby has forced her to confront some uncomfortable truths about the path she has chosen and the risks she is taking with multiple lives hanging in. The balance. One option Portia is seriously contemplating involves completely skipping the paternity test process altogether and simply allowing Curtis to assume he is the father without any scientific verification. This approach would require her to maintain her deception indefinitely, never giving Isaiah any reason to suspect he might have fathered this child. However, executing this strategy successfully demands that Portia somehow convince Isaiah that there is absolutely no possibility he could be the biological father. Port Charles residents and General Hospital fans alike have been buzzing with speculation about how long Portia can realistically maintain this pregnancy secret, particularly when it comes to hiding her condition from Isaiah. After all, they continue to work together daily at the hospital, and their past physical intimacy means Isaiah would presumably notice changes in Portia's body if they were to become intimate again. Additionally, observant colleagues have noted subtle behavioral changes, such as Portia suddenly declining her beloved red wine at social gatherings, a shift that could raise suspicions among those who know her well. The reality of concealing pregnancy. However, medical reality supports the possibility that Portia could successfully hide her pregnancy for longer than skeptics might imagine. Many women, particularly those who are naturally slender or athletic in build, show remarkably little physical evidence of pregnancy well into their second trimester. Factors such as core muscle strength, body composition, and the positioning of the uterus can all influence how prominently a baby bump appears during the early months. Additionally, strategic wardrobe choices can effectively camouflage a growing midsection, especially in a professional hospital environment where loose-fitting scrubs are standard attire. Portia could easily select clothing that provides extra room and drapes away from her body, making it nearly impossible for casual observers to detect any changes in her silhouette. The combination of natural body factors and deliberate concealment tactics makes it entirely plausible that Isaiah remains completely oblivious to Portia's condition, at least for now. Nevertheless, the clock is inevitably ticking toward a moment when concealment will become impossible. Biology has its own timeline that no amount of clever maneuvering can permanently override. Eventually, Portia's pregnancy will become visually obvious to everyone around her, and at that point, she will face the reckoning she has been desperately trying to avoid. Isaiah's career concerns. From the very beginning of their affair, Isaiah Gannon has been crystal clear about his priorities and boundaries regarding their relationship. When Portia first suggested they might need to reveal they were together the night of Drew's shooting, Isaiah's negative reaction exposed his true feelings about having their relationship scrutinized publicly. His response revealed a man far more concerned with protecting his professional advancement than with standing by Portia during a crisis. Isaiah's reluctance to have the affair exposed stems from very real career concerns that he articulated plainly to Portia. As a talented physician working under Portia's direct supervision at General Hospital, any revelation of their romantic involvement would raise serious questions about workplace ethics, abuse of authority, and whether Portia showed him preferential treatment. Such a scandal could result in disciplinary action from hospital administration, damage to his professional reputation, and potentially even investigation by medical licensing boards. The power dynamics inherent in their relationship create particular vulnerability for Isaiah's career trajectory. Hospital policies typically prohibit romantic relationships between supervisors and subordinates precisely because such arrangements create conflicts of interest and potential exploitation concerns. Isaiah made these concerns known from the very outset of their involvement, expressing wariness about even pursuing the relationship given the professional risks it posed. Portia could reasonably interpret Isaiah's fierce protectiveness of his career as a clear signal that he lacks serious commitment to their relationship. His unwillingness to face public consequences alongside her suggests that whatever feelings he might have for Portia pale in comparison to his ambition and desire to protect his professional standing. This realization could factor heavily into Portia's calculations about whether to tell Isaiah the truth about the pregnancy or to simply cut him out of the picture entirely. Portia's history of laboratory manipulation. One of the most chilling aspects of this storyline is the revelation that faking paternity test results would not represent Portia's first foray into medical fraud and laboratory tampering. General Hospital longtime viewers will recall that Portia has previous experience manipulating lab results when it served her purposes, demonstrating both the technical capability and moral flexibility required to commit such serious ethical violations. This history makes it entirely plausible that Portia could successfully alter paternity test results to show Curtis as the father regardless of biological reality. She possesses intimate knowledge of hospital laboratory procedures, security protocols, and chain of custody requirements. More importantly, she holds sufficient authority and access within the hospital system to potentially modify test results without raising immediate red flags among laboratory staff. Curtis might eventually grow skeptical and demand an independent paternity test if he develops suspicions about Portia's honesty. But such doubts would only arise if he discovers information about her affair with Isaiah. As long as Curtis remains blissfully unaware of Portia's infidelity, he would have no logical reason to question the paternity of a child conceived during their marriage. His trust in Portia and his excitement about becoming a father would override any instinct to seek scientific verification. The timeline deception strategy. If Portia decides to avoid paternity testing altogether while maintaining the fiction that Curtis is definitely the father, she would need to implement a sophisticated timeline deception. This strategy would involve claiming she is further along in her pregnancy than she actually is, thereby making it appear that conception occurred before her affair with Isaiah began. Such misdirection could theoretically eliminate any reason for Isaiah to suspect paternity, since the supposed conception date would predate their physical involvement. However, this timeline manipulation creates its own set of complications and risks. To maintain the fiction of an earlier conception date, Portia would ultimately need to give birth significantly ahead of the schedule that matches her actual conception date. A baby born several weeks premature might raise medical questions, but could be explained away as natural variation. But if Portia needs to fake a timeline that would require the baby to arrive a month or more early, such premature delivery could pose serious health risks. The most disturbing possibility is that Portia might deliberately induce her own labor to align with her fabricated timeline. Viewers who question whether Portia would really go to such extreme and dangerous lengths clearly don't understand the depths of desperation and fear that drive her actions. She has already demonstrated willingness to commit medical fraud and violate ethical boundaries. Inducing premature labor to maintain her deception is absolutely within the realm of possibility for someone this cornered. Devastating risks to mother and child. The potential consequences of deliberately inducing premature labor are genuinely terrifying for both Portia and her unborn child. Modern medicine has made tremendous advances in caring for premature infants, but babies born significantly before term still face elevated risks of respiratory problems, developmental delays, and various serious complications. The earlier the delivery, the more severe and numerous these risks become. If Portia induces labor and delivers a baby who requires extended neonatal intensive care, she would face agonizing guilt knowing that her child's suffering resulted directly from her selfish desire to maintain her web of lies. Medical professionals would likely recognize signs suggesting the labor was artificially induced rather than occurring naturally, potentially leading to investigations that could expose her entire scheme anyway. Even worse, Portia could lose this baby entirely either through complications during premature delivery or through a custody battle if her manipulation and deception are eventually exposed. Curtis would have every right to seek full custody if he discovered that Portia deliberately endangered their child's health to cover up an affair. The courts take such matters extremely seriously, and Portia could find herself completely cut off from the child she went to such desperate lengths to claim as Curtis's offspring. The ultimate tragedy is that Portia's elaborate deception schemes are all designed to avoid facing consequences for her own poor choices and betrayals. Every lie she tells, every test she considers manipulating, and every dangerous medical intervention she contemplates brings her closer to losing everything she claims to value. The question isn't whether Portia's house of cards will eventually collapse, it's simply a matter of when, and how catastrophic the destruction will be when it finally does.